Welcome to Glowing Success. My name is Heidi and I am your host. This podcast is for beauty entrepreneurs. Join me weekly as we dive into the beauty industry's ins and outs, from business strategies, top-selling services, and taboo topics. I will be interviewing industry leaders with empowering stories and game-changing insights. Let's illuminate your path to success together. Let's jump into this next episode. Welcome back to Glowing Success. Today, I'm so excited about my interview. I have Megan Hart on. She is also known as the Everyday Herbalist, and we're going to be talking about everything when it comes to balancing the body's internal systems and how it improves your skin health. And she's going to be talking a lot about Ayurvedic practices. So if that is interesting to you guys, keep on listening. But without further ado, welcome, Megan.
Hi, Heidi. Thanks for having me today.
I love it. You know, we were just chatting before I hit record, and I think we're going to have such a great episode. So I'm very excited. Like, this is definitely something that is going to help, you know, people who are maybe struggling with certain skin conditions and things like that. But if anybody doesn't, know who you are, can you go into a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my original background actually was I went to osteology school. That's how I know Heidi, and went and did cosmetology as well. And I ended up getting really sick doing hair and being in the cosmetology world and all of the chemicals. And I decided I needed to make a lot of life changes because I wasn't getting any support with Western medicine. They kept telling me, oh, you're healthy. There's nothing wrong. Your blood levels look great. Yet I was sick. I had chronic hives and chronic fatigue and all of these things. And so I turned towards holistic and natural medicine. And that's when I discovered Ayurveda and started implementing those things. And it's completely changed my life.
That's amazing. Holy buckets. I really feel like a lot of us kind of start in the beauty industry either because we're like product junkies. I hate using that word. So product, we're super excited about products, or like we are battling our own skin issues. And that's actually something that I battled with. So like I did cosmetology first. I think I don't talk a lot about it and then I really realized through that process, I really liked skin. And so later I went back for aesthetics only. But I was having so many issues with my skin when I went back to school for aesthetics. Like, I had such bad inflammatory acne. And I will say, like, changing my internal diet over the years has really helped with my inflammation in my body. Now, coming from like a skin therapist standpoint, or if somebody's listening and they're really an esthetician or they're in skin specifically, and we'll talk about maybe many different types of the industry, but if you're a skin therapist and you have a lot of, inflammation type clients, so this is like your acne clients, your rosacea clients, your eczema clients, how does Ayurveda help with that? Or like, what can you do? What is that practice all about? And maybe introduce the Ayurveda practice before we even get into this. I'm jumping ahead, people. I'm sorry. But so anybody that's listening and is not familiar with Ayurveda, let's start there.
Yeah, so I know we're just too excited. So Ayurveda is an ancient Indian medicine, and it's really a lifestyle and a way of living. The ancient texts that they have found written in Sanskrit are like 5,000 years old. So it's one of the oldest written documented medical systems that exists. And it's something that's really taking a lot of traction here in the United States. So it's something that people are going to start seeing more and more and hearing more and more of. So if you haven't heard of Ayurveda yet, you will. And it really focuses a lot on diet and balancing our internal and our external worlds. So a huge component of Ayurveda too is, what type of climate do you live in? What's your environment like? Balancing that between what's going on internally. And what really makes Ayurveda so different than a lot of the holistic practices and things you see out there is we look at each individual person's constitution. We call that your prakriti. This is your physical makeup. These are your genes. These are the things that you can't change. This is how you're born. And so what's good for me and what I need, whether it's diet or skin health, is going to be different than what you need or what your aunt needs or anything. And so when we look at that and we can see the different characteristics in each individual, we use that to apply to know, okay, these are the types of foods they should eat. This is the type of skin products they should use, and things like that. And so we break that down into looking at the 3 different doshas, and that's probably another term that people have maybe heard. And when you look at the 3 doshas, you have vata, pitta, and kapha. And those are made up of the 5 elements. And so it's just determining how much of each of those doshas you have. We all have all 3, but someone might be very vata dominant, someone might be pitta dominant. And those different characteristics will show up not only in their body type, but their personality type as well. And so it's kind of interesting because, like you're talking about with rosacea, with that angry red inflammation, acne, all of those stem from the same place. That's going to be a pitta imbalance in the body. And so, your people who are pitta dominant, you're going to see their personality. They're going to be driven. They're going to be hardworking. They're going to be, typically a medium build. They kind of tend to be a little more muscular. And so when
you're explaining me.
And so when you're working with your clients, you can easily see these things. You can see them in their features, right? How you have sharp features like I do, those sharp features, that's a pitta quality, right? You struggle with acne and things. I struggle with sensitivity and a lot of redness in the skin, and that's all pitta. And it's because that's what we have more of in our body. And so it's going to be more likely that that's what's going to become out of balance, and what we call accumulate more of those qualities. And that's what brings it out of balance. And so how we fix that is we pacify. So we use the opposites, right? Opposites are going to balance. Like increases like. If you're pitta and you have a lot of inflammation and you're doing things that create more inflammation, right, it's going to make it worse. So you're going to want to focus on cooling things, right? If you've got a lot of that going on, you're going to want to have a cooling mask. You're not going to want to put something on there that's, going to irritate it more. And so it's really kind of focusing on those different qualities. And that's what makes Ayurveda so much different.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, our body tells us so much through our skin, right? Our skin is our biggest organ. It's our largest organ, but our body really comes out with things. So I notice even if I have a lot of stress going on in my life, everything is different in my body. My hair is different, my eyes are different, my skin is different, my mood is different, right? So I can understand how and then just me seeing the results of doing things that are differently for my own skin health, it's crazy. So, and also this can apply to anti-aging. So obviously we talked more about inflammatory things, but really your skin health can be improved with this practice and adding this practice in maybe with so many different ways, because obviously anti-aging is a big word and a big thing. That's really a huge reason why a lot of clients go in and get services done. So, I think that's kind of cool that you can really not only help inflammatory issues, but you can help anti-aging issues. Now, when it comes to your specific practice and when people come to you, obviously they're not coming to you necessarily for skin stuff, right? You're not giving a full facial or anything like that. But what does that look like? So maybe kind of give a good picture to the listener about hey, if they're a hairstylist or an esthetician, if I'm recommending a client to go to this person, what does that consultation look like? Or what does that service look like? And then, or, hey, if you're going to go and have a pop-up event at a spa or salon, or do once a week type thing, how can you work in the beauty industry when it comes to being an Ayurvedic, practitioner, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So the services that I offer, I work out of a spa setting as well. So I do Marma touch therapy, which is similar if you're familiar with acupuncture, acupressure. It's focusing on specific points on the body, and I apply an herbalized oil to open up the channels and things. But a lot of really what I do is consultation work. Working with people, talking about their health history, looking at kind of all of the things that they've been through that's kind of gotten them to this point of imbalance. And then we focus really on what their wellness goals are, whether someone's focused on skin issues, whether someone's focused on, hey, my digestion's not right, what should I do? And what I offer is these wellness plans, and they're totally tailored to specifically what each individual person needs. You'll get recommendations on foods to favor and foods to avoid, herbals that you can take internally and use externally, essential oils, even making masks out of powders and things like that, depending on what it is that someone's looking for. So if someone really wants to focus on skin health, Ayurveda can really help with that. Like you said, your skin's your largest organ. When something's not going right inside, your body's trying to tell you. And that's one way it's going to tell you is through your skin, through your hair, like you were saying. And I even have a client of mine who struggled with a lot of adult acne, and she did the skin topical type stuff, and she's like, it's just not getting to the root of the problem, and I want to get to the root of the problem. And so she came and was working with me, and I had her start drinking a tea, actually, and it's really good for the inflammation. The herb in there, it's called mangista, so if anybody wants to look that up, or if they're interested, it's an Indian herb. And she, within a few weeks, I mean, her acne was completely cleared up. And she had never had acne as a teenager. It was this adult acne, so it was really persistent. And she was drinking tea for a couple of weeks, and she called me, and she was almost in tears. And she said, I can't believe I've been struggling with this for years, and a few weeks of drinking this tea, and it's totally changed my life. And we still keep in touch, and every once in a while she'll, come in for kind of a follow-up when, things kind of get out of whack again. And she'll even send me messages here and there and be like, my skin was acting up, so I started taking my tea again. And, here we go. It's, so it's really information and knowledge that you guys would gain in that treatment room with me that it's lifelong. You get to take it with you.
Because it's
not
internal.
a one and done, because it's internal, and it's your body type. So you're learning specifically what your body needs.
Yeah.
And so you can really take it really far with that.
I love that, and there's a lot of different things out there. Like I started drinking spearmint tea, and I'm sure you have a take on like everything that's popular on TikTok. And because as an esthetician, I see all the fads, right? You know how it is. The industry, we see all the fads come through the channels of social media and YouTube, and it's really fun to see, because sometimes they're just gimmicks, right? And sometimes you're like, oh man, I wish people wouldn't fall for that. And then sometimes they're really good advice, and you're like, you know what, there's something to it. So like, even if spearmint tea is not necessarily the exact herb for you to be drinking, it gives you on the mindset of thinking, okay, I need to think of this more of an internal instead of an external thing. And so I really appreciate, sometimes these fads for that reason, but it really does start from within. And so, and same thing with aging. Don't get me wrong. Like, we're never going to stop progressive aging, right? Because we're just going to get older. Our bodies are going to continue to age. But at the same time, there is a way to gracefully age. And I think like that's what people are interested in. It's like, unless you're going more invasive route of like getting Botox or getting a facelift or like something like that, which is totally fine, to each their own. But if you are wanting to go the more natural route, there's a lot of things we could be doing to not only strengthen the muscles in our face, but also like working through those toxins, right? Because I think like that's another thing that we kind of don't think about is toxin release, right? And it's like something that some people's bodies have a really hard time getting rid of. And yes, our lymphatic system is amazing, but like it's not necessarily going to work perfectly for every person. So sometimes we do have to assist it. And it could be as simple as that, I'm guessing too, right? So when you do these consultations, you really diving deep into like you said, what they're doing on a daily basis. I mean, we do these same things in the beauty industry, right? Like when we're giving skin consultations, even if I'm doing, a peel, or if anybody's out there and does like more services, you really want to dive into like, what is that person doing every day to their skin? That's like my most important question when I do consultations is like, what does your skin go through on an everyday basis? But I'm sure it's the same with internal, right? What are you ingesting? What are you eating? What's around you? I mean, there's so many different probably topics for that too, because obviously we have cleaning products, you have aromas, there's so much that our body really takes in. So it's interesting topic for that reason too, because it's like, there's just so much more to skin health than what we apply to the top. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the topical stuff. I know you really focus on internal, so I'm not gonna like, totally go too far away from that. But I do want to talk about topical just because that is, as a beauty professional, we're selling retail, we're doing that, right? That is our arena, so to speak. And we're doing facials, we're touching people, so I can't disregard that part, even though a lot of our results come from internal action. Can you talk maybe a little bit how topicals can help as well? Like, I know that there's a lot of product lines out there, and I won't mention any names just because like we're not doing that today, but unless you want to, but there has been some companies over the years that have really synergistically worked with ingredients that kind of work with the body's internal systems as well. So like, I know I had a girlfriend, she does stuff with like neem. There's a lot of different ingredients out there. So like, maybe if anybody's listening and they are a skin therapist, can you give them maybe a few tips of like what ingredients to look for if they're wanting to head in that direction of having more of a topically Ayurvedic line, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, it goes back to those doshas, right? Those characteristics. So like you said, if someone's looking for support with gracefully aging and those kinds of things, they're going to want things that are going to be really hydrating, right? So when you think of those hydration masks, when you think of those things that are going to plump and take care of the skin in that way, and I could even, give you a few kind of specific herbs for that. So, if someone's looking for that hydration, using a sesame oil is really powerful. That's kind of a traditional Ayurvedic oil that we use. It has very small molecules, so it penetrates really deeply into the skin and even into the tissues. And when you pair that with essential oils, you really can enhance that even more powerfully. And not just for the face, but for the entire body. And, massaging it too is, bringing that blood flow and all of that to the area. That kind of combination of all of that is really going to be important for that vata dosha, the person who's experiencing that dryness. As we age, we move into our vata stage of life. And so that's part of that natural aging process, like you were talking about. And then, things like licorice, marshmallow root, fennel, these things that are really kind of, if you think of the qualities of those things, marshmallow root is very coating. It's going to be a little bit, kind of more thick, heavy consistencies and qualities and things like that. And that's what you're going to want to put on the skin and also even put in the body. So it's really kind of the same. And it's so important to have a good skin care routine. I mean, you can eat healthy and you can take care of yourself internally, but taking care of that external skin is super important too, especially when we're talking about the seasons. If you live in a hot, dry climate and you're in the sun a lot, you need to take care of your skin that is addressing those environmental factors, versus here in Minnesota, we're getting into the cold, dry season, and you're going to want to use different kinds of products. A lot of people use different products in summer versus winter, and it makes sense because the environment is going to be so different.
And it affects us so differently. Like, I noticed in the last couple of weeks, I've been putting lotion on a lot more. I mean, I wash my hands constantly throughout the day, obviously with clients and stuff. So, but my hands were really feeling it. And I was like, oh, it must be getting drier outside. And you know these things, but then your body really tells you, or I'm drinking a little bit more water, or I'm having my tea at night. There's so many things that we do pick up when the weather changes. It's so funny, but definitely skin. Like, this is the time of year where I tell people like their skin is going to change just a little bit. Same thing in the spring, your skin's going to change a little bit. And yes, change your products a little bit, right? Like, and I'm sure your body systems, we need different things certain times of the year too. Like she was saying, internally speaking, I love how you did the licorice, because one of my favorite teas that I mix together is my licorice root. And I totally took that from when we went to Aveda, because I don't know if you remember the tea at Aveda, but it had licorice in it, and that's what the sweetness came from. And so it was so good. So I remember that. So actually, when I was mixing teas recently, I was like, ooh, I want the licorice. And then I want, this and the other. So like, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I was like, ooh, that's one of my favorites. Like,
We are on the same wavelength today, aren't we?
I love that. Yes. But
It
this
just goes
all
to
helps.
show how powerful all of this knowledge is and how it really ties into, and it's across the board, right? So you see it
Yeah.
in everything, whether no matter what approach you take. And so it kind of gives us some reassurance that this is probably pretty accurate.
Well, and it's all about harmonizing that external and internal, like you said earlier.
Yes,
So,
yes.
we're bringing the two together. Obviously your internal is so important. So, your external, like you said, there's exfoliation that needs to happen on the skin surface. So, yes, we can't think about just the internal. You have to think about some of the external factors as well. But there is, I think I will anybody that's listening and they're a therapist and they are taking a lot of acne clients or inflammatory type clients, you can feel a little lost sometimes as a beauty professional, because there's only so much you can do sometimes when it comes to recommending products to your clients. And sometimes it can be a lot of like trying things because everybody's different. Like, for instance, for me, there's an ingredient, hyaluronic acid, and I know we naturally produce that, but for whatever reason, if there's a product line that has a lot of hyaluronic acid in it, my skin like freaks out. Like, it breaks out. I get like little bumps everywhere. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't like it. So like, I will say not everything is going to work for every person. And so I think sometimes skincare can be a little frustrating for that reason, right? Because we do have to necessarily try things. So in Ayurvedic practice, it sounds to me like when you do your consultations and when you're kind of, getting to know your clients, it's really a lot easier path to kind of say, hey, let's try these things instead of like trying a whole bunch of things. And so that's why I wanted to have you on, because I was like, there's actually like a lot of synergistic, energy going around this of like how a beauty professional can really take some of these practices and really utilize them in the treatment room to kind of come up with those answers a little bit quicker, or get to know your client a little bit quicker, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be like about, quick answers, but you definitely want, when you're in that state. So like when I had high acne going on, and I was very similar to the client that you were explaining earlier. I didn't have any acne issues when I was a teenager, even into my early adulthood. I didn't really start getting acne until I was like 20 or 21. And I suffered from it for many years, and still to this day a little bit, but I'm understanding the type of acne I have and like understanding my internal systems a little bit better. And obviously as we age, that kind of changes too. But it's interesting because like, I wish I would have had somebody around me like yourself, right? Or I wish I would have known something like that, or even a professional when I was early in my career and helping other clients with some of these issues, especially like rosacea and eczema. I think eczema is one of those things. Like rosacea, I feel like we kind of have more of an understanding and a handle on it in today's society, but eczema is one of those things that, it's still a lot of people that challenge with it. There's still a lot of issues with it. But I do feel like if somebody had more information about internal factors or how our body reacts to certain environments and things like that, like, we would maybe be able to figure out a skincare routine a little bit faster. So
Yeah.
when it comes to working with businesses, I know that you mostly do consultations, like you mentioned earlier, and that's, a heavy amount of what your clients come to you is like getting to know themselves, and then you can assist them along the way. But, how can maybe a beauty professional utilize a service like yours? So like, let's say that they had a practitioner in their area, or even you, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a little bit too, of how people can work with you. But let's say they were like wanting to maybe hire a practitioner, and not necessarily to have in their practice all the time, but maybe having like a pop-up event or anything like that. Would this be something
Yeah.
that they would benefit from? Is this something that you can do? Obviously, certain consultations can take a long time, but
Yeah,
there's probably some tips and tricks you can give away to people if they're like
for
in an event
sure.
type thing, or
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, first and foremost, I would tell anyone who's listening, especially if you are working in the beauty industry and you do skincare and stuff like that, and you work with clients in any fashion, would be to do a little bit of self-study and learn a little bit about these doshas. Um, Even if you go to my website, there's a link you can click on and you can take a dosha quiz, and you can learn a little bit about your own doshas. But I really recommend everyone learn about it. It helps you understand everything in the world around you, and it helps you understand your clients in such a more deep and profound way, where you can really offer them solutions, and you connect with them more deeply.
Which
And
which we
it
all want, we all want to
exactly.
connect with that client and, build that trust a little faster, but also just give them that result that they're looking for,
Exactly.
that's huge.
Yeah, nothing is more frustrating than working with someone who's not getting results, right? As no matter what it is you do, you're providing a service, and if you feel you're not meeting that person's goals and things, it's hard for them, but it's also hard for you. So this is just another tool that people can use to kind of learn about that and learn about their clients. And if someone really is struggling, and you've kind of, as an esthetician or whatever practice you're working with, if you've kind of hit a wall, or kind of explored as far as you can go with that person, and they're still struggling, you could absolutely refer them to an Ayurvedic practitioner or consultant in the area. There's not a ton of them in the Twin Cities area, but there are a few around. I work out of the Hastings area. I work at Caring Hands Massage and Spa in Hastings. So I'm about 35 minutes from downtown St. Paul. So I'm not far. So if anybody, isn't afraid of a little bit of a drive, that would be an option. But like I said, there are a few in the area, and it's becoming such a more popular thing. And who knows, maybe you'll dive into these doshas and you're gonna be like me, and you'll be like, wow, this is something that I want to pursue as a career for myself.
Yeah.
And do my own education. And I attended the Maharishi International University. They're based out of Fairfield, Iowa, so it's not super far. And they do online programs, so you can do a lot of your stuff online. You do have to go in person for clinicals and things like that.
Yeah. Which
But
is normal.
yeah, which is exactly. But it blends so beautifully with someone who's already in this industry. You can
Mhm.
apply it in so many different ways. It just kind of depends on how you want to take it.
Yeah.
I had that skincare background, and so I'm able to, kind of pull all those tips and tricks out of my pockets and things like that. But what really I personally became passionate about was a lot of like with that diet,
Yeah.
and that internal type stuff. And so that's kind of the route that I decided to take with it.
Mhm.
There are incredible Ayurvedic services that you can, learn and do and perform in spas, that are
Yeah.
just so profound and so healing in such deep ways. So it's kind of an infinite thing,
Yeah.
with Ayurveda, because it can apply to anything and everything in your life.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the beauty industry is like that. Like we have so many different ways that you could take the beauty industry. So I love that because we're kind of always thinking like that, and there's always new things coming up. But I love that there's so many different ways that you can take that and apply to your practice. So if you're thinking about this, you guys, like it's definitely going to assist you in helping your clients, with that treatment protocol or with, the certain type of, services and products you choose for your practice. Because especially if you're focusing on acne, anti-aging, like I said, any inflammation, inflammation type, if that's what you're digging on and that's what you're like, I love, and that's what my practice is about, this will definitely be a good assistance tool. Now, I was on your website before we got started today, just because that's something I like to do, just to familiarize myself with who I'm talking with. Even if I know them, like I like to have more up-to-date information in my brain. And I saw that you possibly have some workshops coming up. Is that true? I see like there's
Yes,
a little part on your website for that. So,
I
this is maybe
do.
an opportunity where people can work with you. Or so what do you have going on? What's coming up in the workshop world?
Yeah. So coming up here in November, I don't have a date set yet, but I'm gonna do a little bit of a immune boosting pop-up event at a local small little hair salon, actually here in Rochester, Minnesota, where I
Cool.
currently live because I commute to Hastings. But
Okay.
so I'm gonna do that, and so she's gonna have a bunch of her clients there. We're doing a little pop-up event, and my workshops are really hands-on. So it's not just coming and listening. You're going to be creating your own products to take home. You're going to be, with this workshop, we're going to be focusing on, it's something that you would take internally. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with like fire cider or that type of thing. So it's making your own tincture for wellness boosting that you can take at home, and you get to take it home with you. Another class that I haven't set dates for, but coming up later this winter and spring as well, as we'll do an aromatherapy class and things like that too. So you'll have to kind of keep an eye on my website to see those dates drop.
Yeah.
But the ones that I'm planning on doing later in the year will be closer up towards the Twin Cities area. So for anybody who's in that area that's listening, I have a feeling that there's, a lot of people up in that area. Like I said, I work in Hastings at Caring Hands Massage and Spa, and I'm looking at trying to get together a workshop there. And then also in Red Wing, Minnesota, if anyone's familiar with Little Red Wing, there's a beautiful little wellness center. It's attached to a natural food store right in downtown Red Wing. I know the owners really well. They're just an amazing group of super powerful, strong women. And so I'm going to hopefully be hosting a class there too as well. So you'll have to kind of stay tuned. I don't have any dates set yet. It's still in the works, but it's something I'm really, really excited to start offering. And I think it's going to be really popular.
Yeah. Well, working alongside other businesses is so smart because like I was saying earlier, like we all, can benefit from this information, which is huge. So workshop's coming up. I will put everything in the show notes. So if you're listening and you're really excited about everything that she's sharing, don't worry. I got links for you people. So don't worry about that. You can just click on it. I'm really excited about this dosha quiz that you mentioned earlier.
Yes,
so I'll definitely post just a whole separate link to that quiz so people can go on, take the quiz, and be excited about finding out what your dosha is or just finding out a little bit more about yourself. But other than that, where can they find you? You have a website, of course, right? You're on social media. So where can they find you online?
Yeah. So my website is theeverydayherbalistmn.com. And I am on Instagram and I'm on Facebook as well. So you can find me on there, The Everyday Herbalist, Ayurveda. And, when it comes to working with other businesses and stuff, sorry, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. This coming up here, we're having a holiday event at the spa that I work at. And so I'm going to be there doing a little pop-up event. And I will be doing dosha quizzes with people. So people will be able to kind of do a little dosha quiz, discover kind of where they're at, and then take a little party gift favor home that is specifically going to be ideal for their dosha type. And that's something that I could always offer to working with other businesses and things and doing pop-up events and introducing their clients to Ayurveda and educating them a little bit and giving them a few more tools to find that balance and wellness, which will help them get those results.
Yeah.
So like I said, so
amazing.
much potential.
Yeah. So if you're in the Hastings area or kind of towards that area, definitely go online and check that event out. I will link that in the show notes as well, just so people can really find it easy. But thank you for being on today, Megan. I think everybody had so much information and I love that everything you shared with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. I could talk about this all day, every day.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I'm an Ayurveda nerd.
Well, I love that. And of course, thank you for listening. I hope you liked that episode and found something useful or a tip that you can use immediately. If you are wanting more marketing tips, business tips, or anything like that, I have a lot of resources on my website. So I have PDFs that you can download for free. So look in your show notes. There should be a link in the show notes that you can click on and it'll take you right to my coaching website. And thanks for listening.